The draft is done, but the roster isn't. Not even close. Today on the Gray Mains, we're breaking down 9 undrafted free agents fighting for their NFL lives. The position battles Brad Holmes just engineered, and the news nuggets you might have missed this week. If you want to know what the Lions roster actually looks like heading into OTAs, stick right here. Forward down the field.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
And here we are, Lions Gray Mains family. Welcome to Lions Gray Mains. It's Tuesday. It's a little bit earlier than you're used to because we happen to have the Detroit Pistons, Detroit basketball playing later. And we don't want to conflict with anybody's schedules, including ours, because we're going to be watching the game as well after our show. So if you're joining us live, hit us up in the chat. Let's talk about it. I'm excited to do so. My name is Chris Stone. I'm at castahead.net. And the two gentlemen on my screen and in your earballs, let me first introduce the Chief Intelligence Officer of Lions Optimism, drinking blue Kool-Aid and eating that cornbread out of Phoenix City, Alabama, DBC, Dr. Brent Kreider. How we doing tonight, man?
Yeah, the Pistons won again. The Pistons won again.
Yeah.
So it was a great closeout to the series against Orlando, winning 3 straight after being down 3-1. They're gonna have to play a lot better. The Beard is coming to town tonight, so looking forward to it.
That dude sucks in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to say, second round is the time he just decides to schedule his vacation, Dr. Harden.
Oh, they're playing defense now? I got to do that? That's not my contract.
Dan Keener chiming in from the great state of Ohio. DK, how we doing tonight, man?
Not bad, not bad. A little wet around here. We're getting a little rain. And I am south of those enemy Cleveland Cavaliers that are traveling up to the up to Detroit this evening to hopefully get their butts handed to them by the Pistons. But yeah, doing well. Looking forward to tonight's discussion. Going to miss our guy. I know you're going to talk about it, but Mike's not with us tonight. So every error we make, every minute we run over, not our faults. Just saying.
We're off the rails.
We're off the rails.
Off the rails
when Mike's here, we're always over. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how things are going to improve.
But at least he makes us feel bad about it.
That's right. That's right. What a bonus.
Heck with it,
That's true.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, folks, we're going to get into, last week we went through the entire draft, rounds 1 through 7 and what the Lions did. And we really had every intention to go into the undrafted free agents but tonight we're going to get a little bit into those undrafted free agents because there's some great storylines that may relate to the roster. And speaking of the roster and how those pieces are being put together from Brad and from MCDC, we'll be talking about that in more length, the positional battles and how that relates. But as always, we start the show at the very top, getting you caught up on all the Lions news with Dan Keener and the Rundown.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the handoff there. Starting off with a little bit of breaking news this evening, DJ Reader has signed with the Giants for an APY of $6.25 million. That's really about a 45% pay cut from what the Lions paid him the last 2 years. I think it's fair, maybe on the upper end of what I thought he might have gotten. Due to his age and his production. He played a ton of snaps last year. Production was down a little bit, but it wasn't awful. He was still a top 25% tackle across the board. So hopefully we'll talk about a guy that maybe can help fill his shoes a little bit in the UDFAs tonight. But that'll be one of the areas we're going to have to keep an eye on. We still have 3 open roster spots. It's pretty much done deal that he was gone when we found out last week that DJ Wanham actually was wearing his jersey number 98. at the Detroit Lions Ford Field draft thing. So, we didn't know that at the time, and they popped that one on us. It's kind of nobody really talked about that much. So, but yeah, so we're moving on and wish him well. And he did win the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award for Detroit last year. So, congrats. Your prize is 2 years in New Jersey. Maybe a year. We'll see how that contract structured.
Right.
One little, let me see here. One little post-draft news nugget we came across. You got laser-eyed Brad there. Apparently, for sure there was a trade up with the Rams, which we kind of thought that was going to be the target for him to move up. He was looking for somebody, him and Snead, and there's just so much synergies there and so much back and forth. But it also sounds like, and speculation, of course, nobody knows for sure. Nobody's speaking at this point unless something comes up with concrete. But it sounds like they had something in place with the Ravens as a fallback if the Rams trade didn't go through, and the Rams took somebody from the pool that they were looking to pull from. But once the Rams are like, we're just going to take Ty Simpson, the heck with it. Brad's just like, cool. You didn't take our guy. We're good. And trade didn't happen. And thankfully, no draft assets were used. And we still got the guy that we were trying to get all along. So good stuff there.
Yeah, I do love that. I just want to put a pin in this. I think a lot of people right during the draft, of course, everybody's an armchair GM during the course of this, and they think he's not being aggressive, right? They think, oh, well, how come you didn't trade up to get Bain, or you're not making any calls, and then this wasn't the guy we thought we were going to get. We thought it was Monroe Freeling, like all of those things that sort of everybody sort of second guesses what these guys that have millions and millions of dollars on the line to do, that have many people employed to do that. He actually was aggressive. He actually was making calls. He was actually making sure that he got his guy, and then ended up with the guy without having to expend all those resources. I think it's important that Lions fans understand that, and sort of give me a break with all the, hey, we should have done this and we should have done that, before we even know what these players are going to really be. So
yep, exactly. All right, next item. New podcasting duo, Scott Mitchell.
Hey, I know these guys.
Looks like me, only worse.
Wow.
And Herman Moore. So, I mean, I'm not 6'6" or whatever Mitchell is by any means. And I like Scott Mitchell. That dude got a bad rap. He put up some serious numbers.
Scott Mitchell gave us some great memories.
Moore.
Absolutely.
He did.
Yep.
Him, those two plus Barry plus Tom Moore was just lights out, dude. It was a Great Lakes offense, and it will forever be known that way. And little Brett Perryman thrown in there, and a little Johnny Morton sprinkled in on the end, plus the Hogs up front. So that was a fun time to be a Lions fan. That was, until this current time, that might have been our best time to be a Lions fan. So
I love it. I think
at least in our lifetimes.
Listen, we don't look at this as competition. There's a lot of different voices in the space that talk about our favorite football team, the Detroit Lions, and I think it's interesting to get not just us knuckleheads talking about what we love about the Detroit Lions and the intel that we grab and the analytics that we do, but other voices in the space, the beat writers who do podcasts in the space, and of course the former players in the space like Herman Moore and Scott Mitchell. So check out the Down and Dirty podcast, and I know I will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about supporting everybody in the community. We love the information that these folks provide. We do not have access to the Lions. We are fans. We are using common sense and logic. We don't try and give hot takes, although we spout off one-liners every once in a while. Not necessarily hot takes.
They're warm. They're very warm takes.
Yeah. But anybody that has access to the team or been there and played the sport, utmost respect for them. So
100%.
Good luck to you guys, and hopefully you guys are able to keep it going.
We got some new signings.
Go ahead. Yeah, we do. We got some more depth. We are up to currently 87 folks on the roster. In addition to our 9 UDFAs, they pulled in linebacker Joe Bocci and defensive lineman Jay Tufele, I believe is how it's pronounced. He's a bit of a undersized nose tackle. He's built like a 3-tech, but he's very quick and he is a hard-nosed guy. He's got I think he had a little bit of wrestling background to him.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll
But,
get a better fitting uniform for him here in Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, veteran depth is key.
Yes.
We went into that draft. We had 5 linebackers on the roster. When we came out of that draft, we had 8. And nose tackle, defensive tackle, I think was sitting at like 4 or 5, and it was up to like 9 by the end of the draft or something like that. So, Brad did a nice job of filling out the roster with bodies. Let's just hope these guys are capable of playing. If he follows what he did last year, he's bringing in veterans that are special teamers first, but have the ability to spot start and fill in. And if Tufele, for example, at defensive tackle, if he can come in and give us what Lopez gave us last year, which I hope not, because I hope that's Tyleek that's doing that type of stuff.
Right.
If you can get that veteran presence to come in and have a career year, that's money well spent.
Love it.
Yep.
And we have somebody moving on from.
We do.
Yeah.
Guy's a bit of a fan favorite here.
Yeah.
At the Gray Mains, Brad Golly. I think it's Golly, right? That's how you pronounce it. Is it Galley or Galley?
It's Galley.
I'm such a fan. I don't even know how to say his
I'm
last
from the
name,
South. I say everything
Brad.
wrong.
So Brad Golly, he's been a really good source of providing quality info on the Lions and other teams. He was with WXYZ for a while. I think he's been there at least 7, maybe 9 years. He signed off last week on Friday. That was his last day working for them. He's been hinting at he's staying in the market. Says he's going to support all the teams. So I don't think he's going to be Danny Rogers' replacement at the DetroitLions.com, but it sounds like he's probably going to pop up in either another market, another TV station, or something along that lines where he's going to be covering all 4 major sports. So it's good to see because he's a really good resource. He's just driven by the love of the sport, delivering the stories, delivering the information. Just an overall great guy. As you can see in this picture, he's loved by fans, and he goes out and he enjoys himself and immerses himself and everybody out there. So
Pro.
Good luck, Brad. Yep. Let me see. We talked about Wanham taking over DJ Reader's number.
YouTube
so I kind of got that out of order. But yeah, YouTube TV is the second last item on my list here. So, YouTube TV is a bit of an enigma. They tick off a bunch of people depending on whether they have a channel or not. It happens. But they're creating a newer, fully customized multi-view, which also is included Sunday Ticket if you have that as an add-on to the item. And I'm curious if it's a standalone, if I can broadcast 4 channels at once. So we'll see, because I only get it as a standalone every year. So we'll see if that's the case, but for sure you can occupy at least one of your 4 windows with a Sunday Ticket window.
Good.
But yeah, I would think they'd be able to go in all 4 of them, which might be helpful because it's not on our list, but I'm going to bring it in anyway. There's a rumor that Lions are probably going to see a reduction in the amount of games that are on national TV, which, after finishing 9-8, not unexpected. We were kind of top heavy last year and we didn't perform. So, we might get 5, 6 this year instead of 8, 9, whatever we had. So, if you are out of market, Sunday Ticket's your friend. And if you got a kid in college or a kid in high school that's got an email address that's got an EDU on it, save yourself some money.
There you go. Good tip. Pro tip from DK to save yourself some cash. I love this move. I think YouTube TV has actually done a fairly good job. The only problem is, and similar to DirecTV, is like it's their exclusive, right? So it's kind of like you want to see them improve the service as things go along. And there was a lot of rumblings last year, Dan, of the Red Zone actually starting to add commercials. They're doing it somewhat like not, we're not going, 2 minutes of 30-second ads. They're kind of like doing LRAPs and different, types of things. So they're catching a little flack from them for that. So, I do like that they're improving the service. They're making it a little bit more like, hey, I want to choose the 4 games that I have, whether it's 3 games in Red Zone, or I want to pull in the Tigers game, Tigers. Hopefully the Tigers will be playing in October, but I don't know about now. But
Show
in
a
any event,
picture of the hospital.
yeah, sorry to bum everybody, all the Tigers fans out. But I do like that they're improving the service for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, everybody could take, and I hate to say this, but everyone could take a page from NASCAR and go with the NASCAR nonstop that's done on like Fox and the other channels, where they basically sell the advertising window around, or they put ads up, but they leave the game on or the race on in the corner big enough that you can actually see what's going on.
Yep.
So, there's a lot of companies that are willing to do that now, product placement in shows and stuff. There's ways to do it. They'll figure it out. Depends on the feedback they get. And, but we'll get there. But yeah, I agree with you on that one.
And then, of course, we have a final sort of, I would say this is non-Lions related, but, who doesn't love beer?
Yeah,
I mean, if you,
hey, the bottom of the rundown, I just put quirky stuff there, right? We've seen the Zamboni chicken finger basket at Little Caesars Arena. Somebody had I think it was the Texas Rangers. They had like a $40 nacho hat. I mean, literally like grew from Despicable Me 2, where he's taking a chip off and dipping it and eating it. They had that. Well, Carolina rolled out, and the Pistons were in on this too, and they're bringing it back for the round tonight. They had their basketball shoe, Converse Chuck Taylor, that you could fill it with booze, pop, ice cream, candy, whatever. Carolina, they introduced the beer skate. The beer skate was incredibly popular. This thing was $19 for 28 ounces of beer. They sold almost 4,700 units of that thing to 18,000 fans during the game with the Flyers in game 1. So that is a lot of beer. And honestly, I'm just going to say that is cool as hell type of take home from something. I would definitely buy that if I were at the game as a souvenir, especially a playoff game like that.
I might bring that to the dinner table every night, and just kind of like put it, just kind of take
slam it down
milk, water, doesn't matter. I'm drinking out of this thing forever. Das Boot.
Exactly. You could probably find one on eBay, DK.
$230, they said. They're already showing up out there.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, hey, it's like bobbleheads, any type of giveaway. Sometimes some of them are free, some of them you got to drop a little coin on, but you're gonna flip it and make money if you're into that sort of thing. I'm still sitting here. I got a Detroit Tigers cup over here from spring training from like 10 years ago that I still haven't, done with. It's my cup. So
many collector's items, and the thinking is, one day, a rainy day, I'll be able to sell it and it'll be worth something, but I never do. It's like. I just have so much junk in my house, and it's not junk. I love it. That's the reason why I'm not selling it. Brent, before we move on to our next segment, anything that you've got on the rundown that you wanted to make comments on?
I mean, just the other news note that we talked about in the pre-show was Jamison Williams filed a lawsuit against the NCAA, SEC, and Big Ten for NIL compensation. I think we're going to see this happening more and more because much like, Reggie Bush getting his Heisman Trophy back for the violations that he had while he was at USC, accepting a house for his parents and a few $100,000 cash. You'll start to see people say, look, why can't I get NIL for the name, image, likeness that's used? And you see number one in Alabama all the time on NCAA marketing materials. So I think he's probably got a pretty good argument as to why they might owe him some compensation for continuing to use that Alabama number one on a lot of their marketing.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I mean, Spielman sued Ohio State years ago, and he didn't end up with a ton. It was a little over 100,000, I think, where they were using him in promo. But back in the day, that was part of your agreement when you signed your letter.
They owned all the rights.
They owned all the rights. So coming in after the fact, that seemed the Reggie Bush thing's a little different because he was breaking the rules that no longer exist. So
just like they weren't allowed to take NIL money when Jameson was there, and so
they weren't. But again, it's all about where this goes. But at some point, this stuff's going to become so frivolous, they're going to shut it down because it will start impacting current college students that, and I'm not talking to football players. I'm talking, the rifle team, the swim team, the track and field team. These teams are going to feel the pinch.
Shout out to the rifle team.
Teams. Yeah, absolutely. Ohio State's like 27 years in a row national championship rifle team.
God,
It's crazy.
I love how you just slid in Ohio State. Like, the Ohio State rifle team. And this could be the only podcast that mentions the Ohio State rifle team that's happening at 6 p.m.
I think I
Eastern.
undersold them too, just being honest. I think they've had more years than that, so it's nuts. But the thing is college sports needs a refresh, and whether it's Congress or whoever, they got to deal with this because it's not college sports anymore. It's becoming dominated by pros and contracts, and it's going to kill it. And it won't be what it was. It may never be what it ever was, but at least try and stem the tide of running into basically a semi-pro league. So.
Right on. So as we approach the our segments here, I just want to shout out the folks that are here in the chat. Molly Kreider, she so don't feed Dan's love of that. Like, we're gonna get so many odd food. We're gonna get like odd food people as our. No, I'm kidding. Molly just says those are some funny food finds. I'm sure they sold like crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be interesting to maybe find out from Lions fans what kind of crazy food. Like, I know last season, Jahmyr Gibbs, they did like a Sonic, it had like blue gummies and some other stuff. I was like, I kind of, I have a thing for blue food, believe it or not. May have something to do with my Lions fandom. I don't know.
Guys, Papa Smurf over here.
Right, exactly. And it was like a burger, and it had like blue gummies, and it had all kinds of crazy stuff on it. I don't know. Maybe we do if JMO is still, maybe we do doesn't he do a thing where he's got he does a quarter pounder and then he puts a cookies and cream ice cream on it. Yeah.
Puts his McFlurry on a McDonald's cheeseburger, I think,
exactly.
or something like that.
And we also want to shout out the newest fan who joined us, during the draft, Sleepless in the Mitten. Hey, gents, let's go Lions. And boy, I got to get this chat thing situated on my my
you lost
screen.
your mojo without having Mike there as a backstop.
Yeah,
not that he
let's
did
blame
anything,
it on Mike.
but
I
he's
appreciate
just a calming influence.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. All right, guys. So let's talk about these undrafted free agents. We didn't get to them last week. Let's set the table. Brad Holmes had 7 undrafted free agents to make the roster since 2021. And so that's, with that 15-year streak ending last season. So our UDFAs from last season, none of them made the roster. But before that, there was a huge streak of Lions players that made that. Brent,
roster, right?
what's Holmes' track record tell us about how we should take this UDFA class? Should we take it seriously, or should we just kind of you guys go over to the kiddie table? We're focusing on these real draft picks.
Well, the new approach, right? Using the air quotes, Brad Holmes' new approach, organization-wide, to how they draft and develop players. I think what you're going to see this year, and how is it different from last year, is last year the Lions went all in. They believed that they were at a point with the roster maturity that they had to be able to compete for the Super Bowl, and ending up 9-8, last place in the division, and not winning, not making the playoffs. They initiated this review of the program, right? Top to bottom, back to front, side to side. We're going to look at everything we do. And some of the changes that have been made, including not having a rookie minicamp, including having all the rookies and the undrafted rookie free agents come in to work out with the players. And then everybody reports to, the early camp here as a team, 2 weeks, I think it is. And so what you're going to see different this year is assimilation of these young players into everything you do every day. Workouts, getting used to the speed and the tempo and the pace that we do things, different than college football. And so I think we're going to see an opportunity, given all the veterans that we've let go, including the Reeders and the Lopez's and Anzalonis, letting them walk. You're going to see some of these players be given every chance to make the roster. And there's a few that stand out that I'd like to raise. to the folks here. The first and foremost is Eric Hunter, the linebacker from Morgan State. We all were very aware that the Lions, because we talked about this last week, the Lions had paid him some guaranteed money and a larger contract than what you would normally expect to see from a rookie free agent linebacker. Now the guy is an athletic marvel. He's a 9'9" guy, if I remember right, on Raz, and he ran a 4.48 as a linebacker, had a 10.10 broad jump, and he is an athlete.
Yeah.
And the Lions, if nothing else, are looking to improve special teams play. Special teams, for the past few years had been pretty good. We were ranked in the top third of the NFL, and then suddenly we took a step back in our special teams rankings. And so what the Lions are looking for, not only from Hunter, but the other players that we've drafted and developed and the undrafted rookie free agents, is to improve our special teams coverage and our return abilities. I just can't stand the thoughts of running into the backside of offensive linemen or blockers anymore. We need to improve special teams. So that's where I think you're going to see some of these players really be able to make the Lions roster. Athleticism, speed, and what we're hearing already is some of these players have grit, right? They have the right attitude, the right fire, and I think that in many ways may have been missing in the formula when you're looking at the program from top to bottom. What was different from 2 and 3 years ago? Why were we able to win a lot of close games when it came down to it, and why did we lose some of those games last year? So I think Eric Hunter is the first guy that comes to mind. The second one is Aiden Keanu. He is absolutely, and I'm probably slaughtering his name, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for slaughtering his name.
I think there's more
But
syllables. I think it's like Kianania. Like there's like there's too many syllables for people from Alabama. So that's cool.
But you got a guy here who is a massive 6'3", 320-pound plug in the middle. What happened to the Lions last year with DJ Reader and Lopez? We were poor against the run. Our starting defensive tackle from Ohio State, he played really well as a rookie. I think the Lions expect him to step up and be a starter at the position. But I think a guy like Aiden Keanu, as you were saying, Chris.
That was 6 too many syllables, but we're good.
He's going to be be able to come in and prove that he can stop the run. And what was interesting, Dan had posted in our Slack channel this past week some statistics about the rush defense at Cal when he was on the field and when he was off the field. And the Cal defense ranked much higher with him on the field, including a 6.1% missed tackle rate, which is phenomenal. A really, really, really strong missed tackle rate. And so those are just a couple of the names. And I know Dan's going to dig into some of the other players, and we'll talk more across the spectrum of how these folks may be able to come in. But what did we say coming off the draft? Everybody knows Jacob Rodriguez was my guy, and I'm glad to see somebody else agree with me.
Is there going to be a podcast where his name is not mentioned? I don't know.
But anyway, the point is that our depth at linebacker and defensive tackle, I think we all left the draft going, wish we had addressed these two positions a little bit better. And Chris, you were quite vocal about that. But I love what the Lions have done at those two positions since the draft ended. And I'll turn it over to Dan to kind of dig into some of that, because we're gonna have a young team, a much younger team in the middle, but I think we're gonna have a much more physical team and aggressive team than maybe what we had last year.
Yeah, and you're dead on with that. It's interesting that, I pointed out a little bit ago how he went into the draft and he needed bodies, and he completed his draft, and then he filled out the rest of the body count that was needed at linebacker and interior D line. We have a full team now. We still have 3 open slots, and I'm looking at these 3 positions, be like, where do we put these guys? Is it being held for a kicker and a punter, and to just for camp legs, and another quarterback maybe? I don't know, but I'm looking at it. We're pretty well balanced across the board, every position. And these guys that he brought in, you nailed it. We're younger, we're faster, we're stronger. But something I want to touch on, just a quick little side note, is we're cheaper. And
There it is. Yep.
I can't be the only one thinking this that looks, that watches Lions and covers Lions, but I feel like I don't think the Lions are having or the Forge are having money problems. But when you start looking at all of these things that have done together, Danny Rogers was let go, has not been replaced. They're not holding a rookie minicamp. They didn't hold any local day. They had very few top 30 visits that we're aware of. Maybe they had them all. They took a very measured approach to free agency, so they know they have a lot of money going out the door coming up to four highly touted players that need contract extensions over the next couple of years. So, and maybe it's not a money issue, but maybe it's like a cash flow issue, right? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but you look at this, you're like, what is going on? Why are these guys being cheap? I mean, but something else is going on because the Wilfs are doing the same thing up in Minnesota. They spent the most money last year, like well over $300 million in contracts. This year, they're like second to least. Now they're preparing to sell the team, and I don't think, it was speculated they're preparing to sell the team, but it just seems like something's going on right now with all these teams, and they're trying to like rein in spending on things. So again, I'm just speculating. I don't know.
No,
But
Dan, I think I disagree specifically with what you said there, the way you said it. I don't disagree with the thought. I think what teams are realizing, and to the point that you made about DJ Reader, he's signing for 40% less with
yeah,
the New York Giants. Why? Because number one, these high priced veterans have, and you talked about this last year multiple times with Phillips and others. Um, Players are being signed to these exorbitant contracts because they're experienced, 32 years old, 30 years old, 35 years old. I think what teams are starting to realize is, how do I better manage the cap? And I think
yeah,
the thing that you didn't mention that you have talked about a lot is the Lions have to set some money aside to re-sign Gibbs and Campbell and others. So the Lions are looking at this as draft and develop versus
yeah,
versus signing higher price free agents like they've done over the past couple of years. They didn't go crazy like the Eagles or crazy like some of the other franchises, which they're going to be in cap purgatory here at some point, I'm sure. But the Lions are trying to be responsible in re-signing their free agents, and this graphic that Chris is going to pop up shows you the point that you were making and that I'm trying to make here as it relates to responsible management of the cap. And we know this because before the draft and before free agency, we were talking about how much money do the Lions have available to them in restructure funds. This number goes up next year significantly if the Lions don't restructure the contracts that exist for Amon-Ra, Penei Sewell, Hutchinson, all the players that have been signed to larger contracts. And as I was looking at the salary cap over the past couple of weeks, and I'm looking at 27 and 28, the Lions are going to be in just a wonderful position because they're going to have players in their prime, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, the Jameson Williams, the Laportas, the Campbells, etc., the Gibbs, and they're going to have a lot of available cap room. This year is the last year where we're going to be really tight in against that cap. But the Lions, if they can get through this process and recruit younger players that are cheaper, to your point,
yeah.
then what does that do for the Lions next year? They could sign a couple high-priced veterans if they want to. But I believe the draft and develop model, because Detroit is a smaller market, yeah, the Dolphins, I love their situation with Tua.
I,
But
I like seeing
the
the Eagles
draft and
down there.
develop. Yeah, me too. The draft and develop model is, I think Brad Holmes believes in the players that he picked, but I think more importantly, why let a player walk that you've drafted and developed? Why let them walk and then have to sign a high-priced veteran free agent that's an unknown commodity, that's long in the tooth, etc.?
Good stuff. You guys, it's a good thing you guys are smart. All right, so our friend Sleepless in the Mitten is chiming in here and says, are Lions in roster building mode, or are they in roster polish mode? I haven't heard many discuss the moving goalposts of a GM as they actually do their job. Dan?
Yeah, so sorry about that. My internet provider decided to give me a timeout briefly.
Oh, didn't even notice.
So, yeah.
There's probably a profanity timeout. That would be my
Exactly.
guess. I mean, I'm just spitballing.
Good job, Viacom, or whatever.
Idiots at Spectrum.
Spectrum. Of course
get your
it's
stuff
Spectrum.
together.
All right, stop giving them a plug.
No, this isn't a plug. This is a plug of shame.
This is a 1-star on Yelp.
Back to our UDFAs, these guys, they fill a need, fill a purpose, right? But they also are guys that clearly were overlooked. I think he was very selective in who he went after. He didn't just go sign, I think the one guy he probably whiffed on was probably Haynes King, because he signed before we announced the Altmaier signing.
The Georgia Tech quarterback.
Quarterback. Yeah, I think that might have been the guy they were trying to get. They spent enough time with him and kept talking to him that it seemed like they were interested in him. But these guys all fill needs, and it's not just needs. It's not just a body at a position. It's like you look at what they offer to the team, and they fill holes of players that we don't necessarily have. And look, these guys aren't being signed to be starters. These guys are being signed to either be, to answer the question, to be roster building pieces, right? They may be on the may end up being on the practice squad next year, kind of like we saw with some of the players from last year. Yeah, nobody made the active roster, but we had several of our UDFAs that made the practice squad. And these guys are guys you look at and say, yeah, we see potential here. We're going to give them money, entice you to come here, and we want to develop you. And either you're going to be the last guy on the roster or maybe on the practice squad, but, with the intent of eventually working your way onto our roster and be a contributing member of the team. And if you hit lightning in a bottle, it's even better, right? So, two edges, a defensive tackle, run stuffing nose tackle, two linebackers. A linebacker that was the best player in at HBCU last year. A couple of DBs, a backup quarterback. He did a nice job of filling out the roster. So I would agree it's roster building. And with all of the money being committed to these high level players that we're going to need to do, this is back to teams that have success when they hit lightning in the bottle with a rookie quarterback. The reason they're able to bring in those pieces to put them over the top is because they're paying a quarterback like peanuts who's playing at a Pro Bowl level. And as soon as that guy goes off that roster, with the exception of maybe, our friend over in Kansas City and really he's the main one, because, they Eagles won with Hurts getting a lot of money, but it wasn't Hurts that won it. It was other players. They ran Saquon Barkley until he couldn't run anymore. But so I think this is the Lions trying to say, how do we balance that? How do we keep a roster full of high-paid veterans that are still highly productive Pro Bowl players, but bring in these other pieces to make sure that we get guys that are developing? So when these guys come past their prime, so DJ Reader, we paid him a fair amount of money, about $11 million a year on average, right, to come in for 2 years. We gave Anzalone a 3-year deal that was a pretty good deal. Well, these guys have now, and I'm not going to say it's been Anzalone because I think he still has quite a bit left in the tank, but like Reader, looked like he was starting to slide a little bit, so they're trying to replace him with somebody on the roster that can backfill it. That's why Tyreek was drafted last year, to be his replacement. And then we're bringing in youngsters behind him to fill the gap, right? So that's what he's doing, is he's using these UDFAs to basically spackle in all the cracks and stuff on the wall and hoping that one or two of them hit and become, contributors to this team, because they're just going to be making vet minimum essentially for the next 3 years.
Yeah. And I did post here for Chris to grab, if he wouldn't mind, DJ Reader's PFF scores. And what you see is a player who over the course of time, really consistent, very consistent rush defense, had a couple, 3 or 4 good years of pass rush. But what I'm seeing on the Lions roster now is that you can get the same value for his metrics last year at a much lower price than what you're going to get at at that price point for DJ Reader. And so, if you look at where they're going, you bring these younger players in to compete with these guys that have been on the roster for 3 or 4 seasons. The rush defense was nothing to write home about last year with DJ Reader and Lopez there. I think we went down about 10 spots overall from season to season in our rush defense. And so I don't think it can get worse by having a youth movement. I just don't believe that re-signing DJ Reader for $5 million that you could set aside to put into the Jack Campbell pool and Laporta pool. Not that I've heard rumors that we may or may not re-sign Laporta, but I'm a big fan of drafting and developing. And so the players, the combination of what Dan said about getting cheaper and having the same level of production. These guys all have had another season to develop. They're in those 50s and 60s, which is where DJ Reader will head this next 2 years. He, from the 60s down to those 50s ratings. And so I think, the Lions have made a decision. We're gonna be more effective at our cap management and commit to re-signing drafting, developing, and re-signing our own players that we drafted.
Let me play a little devil's advocate here, guys, because that's great. It's almost like is Holmes like getting some sort of bonus for his savings, right? It's like I understand sort of the it is a bigger, longer game. It is there's a lot of things to manage, right? But at what point are we going to be, like it's bet after bet on guys like Wanham, on guys like Tufele or whatever that they just got from the Jets or wherever they got, and hoping that the scheme, especially on defense, which may or may not be the issue. Just plugging another guy in there may not necessarily be the right thing. Yeah, obviously we lost Anzalone and we're plugging him with Rodriguez, right? We're going to plug him with Rolder. Like, it just feels like everything from a talent perspective. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen a lot of these guys yet. So let's see how they play. But it does feel like from a talent perspective, which equates to salary and all these things, it just feels like that's also taking a dip, right? So I'm just putting it out here.
Yeah. Well, let me just throw this out there really quick. A couple of rebuttals to,
please.
And I don't disagree with Brent says, but I think the run defense last year was more a byproduct of the safety injuries that we had, and also a first-time play caller as defensive coordinator. He wasn't calling defenses that he just didn't have the feel that Aaron Glenn did for the game flow and what defense to be in and how to set it up. And losing Branch multiple games, for the suspension and then the injury, and then obviously Kirby was out. Those guys that replaced them, while they played admirably, they weren't our starting defensive safety duo that know how to interact with the team. I think that hurt our run game more than anything. But to answer your question though, about this defense, I think year 2 of the defense is going to be much better with him calling plays. And then on top of that, you brought up the linebackers. Everything points to them trying to move away from a 4-3.
I think we're freezing up.
I think we lost Dan.
Yeah, I think we have we have.
So let me just jump in while he's getting back on his internet. But the safety run defense was better with the backups. We talked about this last week. It was better last season than it was, with our starting safeties 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of efficiency. Now, let me say this. You mentioned the word cheap. Does Brad Holmes save money? So the Lions
say cheap?
Yeah, I think you. I mean, we'd have to replay it back.
Maybe I'm just
said,
okay.
Does Brad Holmes get a bonus for being? I mean, it doesn't matter, right? The wording, the point you were making is that the Lions are somehow going to spend less money. That's not true.
Okay.
The Lions right now have already committed $34 million more to this year's roster than to last year's roster. So we spent 286 million last year, and we're already up to 320 million with the impending adjustments that we're going to make, to extend contracts of Gibbs and Campbell and Laporta and Branch is eligible, et cetera. And so, sorry, Dan, we lost you.
No, he's back.
No, I know. I'm sorry,
drained out.
man.
But yeah, no, it's not your fault, unless you cut the line. But the
Pay your bill.
the point I was making is that the Lions are spending more money this year by going from 286 million to 320 million, and then they have the flexibility to be able to extend players without going into cap purgatory. You got about 23 million space that you're going to commit to. I mean, Campbell's going to get a huge contract, and so I think what Brad Holmes is realizing, and man, I'm so happy to be having this conversation this year versus 2 years down the line when we lose guys that we really would love to see retire in Detroit Lions.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
we're talking about, right? We're talking about 2 years from now, and I think this is what the right now fans are. This is. I was leading you guys. This is what a facilitator does. I want to lead you down here because this is not a this year thing. This is a 2029 thing, even in a lot of cases. There's a lot of players, Campbell, I'm glad you brought up Campbell. There's a lot of people that saw the headline and said, Lions decline the 5th-year option on Jack. And so everybody just
idiots.
rolls off of the, oh my gosh, the Lions are screwing up, that they don't understand these sort of situations. And it's about building this team, not just for this year, but for future years as well. And, unfortunately / fortunately, Brad Holmes had an amazing draft where he drafted 4 All-Pros in 2 rounds. And, and so now you're in a situation where it's like, it's time that you pay these guys, which
pay the piper.
Now it's time
right?
to pay the piper. Go ahead, Dan.
to what Brent said, every dollar we keep on this year's salary cap is a dollar that's not just wasted in a void year when we need to sign a player or bring in new players down the road. And this is the hard reality the Eagles are going to find out. They've pissed away so much of their future cap dollars into wasted contracts where it's all in void. Well, they're using bonuses, but regardless, the Lions are trying to keep as much money in the year that they haven't originally committed to, so that way it's not just funny money. If you go to over the cap, Spotrac, any one of these, at the bottom of them, they always have dead money, right? And Brad has been very consistent with keeping his dead money as between like 12 to 14% of his overall cap every year that he's used void years and everything else. So this year we've got about $26.5 million right now in dead cap out of a $325 million salary cap. So we're less than 10%, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wants. So, and that frees up money that just otherwise would not be available to actually pay a player because you've already committed it to a guy that's playing for somebody else or out of the league enjoying retirement.
And we've got $23.5 million in cap space, roughly, just under $23.5 million. How much would Jack Campbell's contract per annum equate to? The offer, I think, was $21.8 million. Coincidental? I think not, because I think what Holmes is doing is he's projecting to say if you can, as much of that $23 million, because injuries happen. You could need to add additional players.
They definitely do happen. You need to retain to us.
You need you could need to retain some of that money in order to add players to the roster when injuries occur. You need this flexibility. Campbell's contract, and we're not going to pay him anywhere near $22 million in the first couple of years. We'll give him a $30 million signing bonus and lower salary numbers over the first 2 or 3 years, and it'll balloon at a time when these other players' contracts are decreasing in value. And so, at the end of the day, I think this is masterful cap management.
Yeah.
Really, really good cap management. Would I not love to sign every All-Pro in the NFL? Of course. but we have more all pros than any other team in the NFL.
Right.
Bring back the 90s wings, man.
So Dan, before things went a little haywire with our friends at Spectrum, you were talking a little bit about the linebackers and how the scheme may be going more to a 4-2-5, and so I just wanted to underline that and let you finish your thoughts there.
Yeah, now of course that's all predicated on the hybrid safety role being able to be filled, right? We have two safeties we are unsure about right now. We know for sure Branch won't be back till midway, if not 3/4 of the way through the season. He may not even be himself. We don't know anything about Kirby, but the fact that they drafted no safeties and they only signed one UDFA that's like a quarterback safety hybrid bodes well for Kirby. But we did, of course, sign Eitzen, and we signed was Davis, I think, or whatever his name is from Pittsburgh, or Clark from Pittsburgh.
Clark, yeah.
So, we did backfill the roles. We got Maddox back. We got the other guy back. I mean, so our safety position has guys in it that can play, but I think he wants to make sure that flexibility is there.
I posted the link there, Dan, for you.
Yeah. So he wants to make sure that
I just
the
posted the list
roster
for you.
is stacked with guys that, can play any of the positions at safety, and also be situational, right? If they're running out, I mean, we've seen a proliferation last year of, was it 12 extra tight ends? I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's like 12 men, something like that. But in that case, you don't necessarily
12 and 13 is 2 and 3 tight ends.
You don't want a bunch of linebackers out there, because these tight ends that are out there, these guys can dust these linebackers most of the time now. They're so athletic. So you're going to want a safety or a cornerback that's bigger, 6'3", maybe around 200 pounds, or a safety who's 5'11" and a half to 6'2", around 215. That's who you want on these guys now, to be physical with them as well as be able to hang with them. And, I think that's how Brad is structuring his roster to try and offset the ends. They can cover tight ends. They can cover running backs out of the backfield, at least initially. We'll see how it shakes out, because, maybe they don't have that ability. But, when Kirby Joseph, who's our all-pro, is our worst-rated one, safety-wise on our roster, granted that's probably due to injury, playing on one leg, but, some of these grades are pretty good. Branch, we get him back. Hopefully he's himself. Clark is pretty strong. I don't know what's the fourth column there. Is that the pass coverage?
Yeah. So from left to right, thanks, Dan. It's defense. It's defense on the left, rush defense, pass defense, and then coverage.
Okay.
So your point is where I was going to go next is these sub packages, right?
Right.
Where it's an obvious running situation, where it's an obvious passing situation, and I figure that's probably where you were going anyway. So I thought I would jump to it. But the Lions have the flexibility here in that 4-2-5 scheme that you keep talking about. And frankly, you called it out before the national and local media folks did. The Lions were probably going to be going to a 4-2-5. I remember a couple months ago when you started talking about this, and I'm not sure what your source on that was, but you were already saying, hey, the Lions have got a load of safeties here, and we've only got two linebackers on the roster. So kudos to you for pointing that out, before anybody. But look at the ratings of these players and the depth that's been created at safety, and scheme wise, who do we need to stop? The passing of the Green Bay Packers, the passing of the receivers of the Vikings, and the
Bears with their
Bears.
8 tight ends that are all top 5 round pick tight ends.
That's right.
They've got 3 pass
They killed us
catchers
with
now.
the tight ends. Yeah, they killed us with the tight ends. So the flexibility they've created with the safeties and that 4-2-5, man, I couldn't be happier as this has unfolded over the past month. Free agency, and people are clamoring to go after these high-priced free agents. And what did Brad Holmes do? Just masterfully tick, 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 added players that fit into those schemes that we know that the Lions are going to want to have in terms of flexibility. I'm ecstatic with where we sit today.
Yeah, and the other thing too is what we don't know. We're not sitting in the room, but this might be a Kelvin Shepard request. He might be have said, "Hey, I need to I ran it last year with the people we had, and then of course injuries, impacted their ability to run it. But he has a better feel as year two. He was actually calling fairly decent games at the beginning of the year until he started getting saddled with injuries in the defensive backfield. But he might have decided, or asked Brad and Dan and said, "Hey, for me to effectively call the defense I want to call and be aggressive and do what we all want us to do, this is the makeup of my defensive depth that I need to have, so that way I can, to your point, the sub packages. That's everything nowadays. You don't roll out, this isn't the 70s where you're rolling out, a 5-2 with, a bunch of dudes in the backfield that can't run. You got to have a guy to offset every imaginable type of offense that you might see, and then be able to have the wherewithal to go out and call a defensive game and substitute to make sure you have the right people on the field to counteract whatever they plan to do. That's why guys like Ben Johnson, and his trick plays and stuff from his Lions days, they were so prolific because they give you one thing. I mean, they'd stick your leg out and you go for that leg and they'd be going the other direction, because they would masterfully bait you into doing something, even if you had the right guys in the field to defend it, but then they'd go the other way with it. So you have to have guys, we saw that happen last year. What was it? Barnes, he looked really silly trying to tackle, was it Willis? I don't know who it was, who went out for a pass. Might have been the Giants, Winston. And he looked silly because he got out there late. Winston juked him, got a touchdown, right? But you know what? Barnes wasn't even supposed to be that. That's not who was supposed to cover that guy. Somebody blew their assignment, and he had enough speed and intelligence to at least get out there to try and make a play. Now, he didn't make the play, but he got out there and recognized it. And, adding that in a guy who's a little bit faster than Barnes at a
That's a funny picture.
We're fighting. We're fighting the internet here.
It looks like that SNL skit that he shared
exactly. But let's do this, and hopefully Dan will be able to rejoin and be fine.
Safety.
There he is.
That means that they even have a better shot at least.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this because we're nearing the end and the Pistons are about to tip off. So I want to do this.
My interconnection is unstable. Thanks.
So I want to do this. Let me ask you guys both. Brent, let's start with you, and hopefully the interwebs will clear themselves in Ohio. But again, Dan, not your fault. I totally get it. I've been there before as well. In looking at the Lions roster, the pieces that have been put into place from Brad, and now the coaching staff from Campbell, I want you guys to name one player that you are keying in at, and it could be an existing player based on the new look defense, the new players that are coming in on offense. Could be offensive line. We haven't talked at all about offensive line tonight. We spent most of the time talking about defense. Is it some of these free agents that have been brought in, whether it's Pacheco or Christian Eisen, or maybe an existing player like a versatile player like Rock Ya-Sin? What's one player that you're looking at as sort of like the most interesting potential player in the offseason? Brent, let's start with you.
Can I do?
Nope, you get one.
Two?
Yeah. Go ahead. Go. While Dan's got his internet, let Dan go first. Let Dan go first.
One player.
So I'm going to give you two.
Of course,
but
you
the
are.
first one, I know, because the first one's completely off the wall. Kai Conklin,
Okay.
the tight end.
Good
That
one.
guy gives us protection from any injury or extended injury to Laporta, and he is a all-around tight end. He can catch, he can block. He gives us something we've lacked because outside of Laporta, every tight end on the roster has either been a blocker or a receiver. They've not been able to do both. So having him on the roster, I think, gives us protection that if something happens to Laporta, we're covered, but also that second tight end and allowing Brock Wright to do what he does best, which is become a pass receiver, right? Free these guys up to do what they do best. And then the second one, just real quick, and I know it's
I said no. I'm kidding.
Probably on to Brent. It's signing Brent to be our main guy. Damn it.
It's what?
Wah,
All
wah,
right.
wah.
I missed. No, you could
it-
you could give another one.
Nope.
Go ahead, Dan.
You said no.
Oh, come
Sorry.
on, Dan. You can't do that now. Just go ahead. Go really
All
quickly.
right. The second guy who's going to be the most impactful is going to be Derek Moore, because he's going to unleash that defensive line. And if they are too busy double teaming McNeil and Hutch or Tyleek, Moore's going to get home and wreak havoc. If they have to spend extra bodies, whether it's a tight end, a running back, or another lineman on Moore, someone else in that D line is going to get home. And as we know, the best help for a defensive backfield is a pass rush. And we have
Pressure on the quarterback.
had it, but it's been journeymen who have been inconsistent. And, last year when we actually had 11 sacks from AQM, our defense was in shambles because of injuries. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, are those two guys right there.
Love it.
All right. So it's easy to always start with a quarterback. Won't do that because we know what we get with Jared Goff. I'm going to go with Blake Miller. Blake Miller is so important to the Detroit Lions this season. Is he the guy that many are now saying, many NFL executives are saying after the draft, he was the best right tackle in the draft. He was the most ready for the NFL of all the offensive linemen in the draft. I think, the Penn State kid at guard was probably arguably, more ready for the NFL. But Blake Miller, the Lions offense has to get back to being able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. The defense, if the defense steps up, that's going to make the Lions even harder to beat. So to Dan's point, the defense has got to be middle to upper tier for us to compete for the Super Bowl. But the Lions offense has to get back to where we were 2 years ago with our ability to run the football, control the line of scrimmage, and dominate. And I think Blake Miller being able to step in and start as a rookie is absolutely going to be something that I'll be watching early and often throughout the course of this season.
Love it.
I like it.
You got a quick bonus one, Brent? Since Dan got two, you get one. You get a quick bonus. Another player.
Well, go into the defensive side of the ball. The ability of the secondary to gel, right? Dan hit on the importance of the pass rush and somebody from that young group stepping up on the front, right? Whether it's stopping the run in those sub packages or putting pressure on the quarterback in those sub packages. But the ability of that secondary to gel, like they did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the no-name defense, the who dat
Legion of
defense,
whom?
whatever we want to call it.
Legion of
Not
of
who
whom.
dat. That's
That's
You're
the
talking
Saints.
the Bengals.
Yeah. The
No,
Saints and the Bengals.
Who Day is the
that's
Bengals.
who dat is
dat?
the Saints.
Who dat? Yeah, but the point I was going to make is that the safety and cornerback rotations. We showed earlier how the scores, the ratings for the players from PFF, how those positional strengths and weaknesses give the Lions the ability to manipulate their sub packages depending upon the scenario. But how well does that secondary gel together? Terrion Arnold's going to be huge. Somebody has to step up on the outside. Love to see Rakestraw come in and play, but I'm really excited about the depth and the competition that we're going to see from what Brad Holmes has been able to do with adding all this depth.
Love it. I got one player. I think you guys. I made it well known that I think one of the issues that the Lions had was the retirement of Frank Ragnow, and that was really a key reason as to why we couldn't run the ball well. And there was a lot of issues on the offensive line, which caused all kinds of havoc. And so my player to key in on is Cade Mays, our new center. I can't tell you whether or not I think he's going to do it, but I sure hope he can. And that's all we have as Lions fans is hope right now, because there's no football. In fact, we don't even know who we're playing when. Oh, we know who we're playing. We just don't know
the easiest schedule in the NFL.
It's the easiest one, right?
Schedule in the
Projected easiest schedule.
I know. I think the Giants are going to be much improved.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, We'll see what the Bears do with their first place schedule after they. Yeah, exactly.
Sleepless in the Mitten says seems like we added more stand-up edges to have more 3-4 as well. Yeah, Moore's played both. He's stood up and put his hand in the dirt as well. And
flexibility.
He says, sorry, I have Spectrum Internet here too, and my internet's a little bit behind your live stream. Well, thanks for sticking around, Sleepless in the Mitten. And Wanda, typically you're the very first person we bring in on the chat, but you are the very last, and thanks for coming in at the finish. Missed half your show. That's okay. There's a thing called replay, and all these shows are available on replay, and we appreciate everyone joining us once again for Lions Gray Mains. The other thing too is we went an hour earlier than we typically do. We typically go live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're listening on the replay and you want to join us live, probably the easiest way to do that is on YouTube, but we do go live in a lot of other places like Twitch and X, which Sleepless in the Mitten's in here on, soon to be Instagram, as well as Facebook. We go live there as well. So you can join us there or, continue to catch us on replay. That's cool. And as always, when we end the show, we always end it by saying, Go Lions.
Go Lions.
We're going to get it one of these days.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks a tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught.